You know that song? If you can't be with the one you love, love the one you're with. Maybe it's more like, if you can't be the person you want to be, love the one you are. Got it.
Welcome to Wadi World, home of the universe's largest Chula board. Would you like to play? Yes or no?
Yes.
You answered
Yes.
Our docking computer will now guide you in.
We've been here for 3 days. Can we move along home yet? This is episode 15 of Star Trek Prodigy, Season 1. We must be on the home stretch now, although I didn't check to see how many episodes there were in the season. This episode is called Masquerade. Who's masquerading? What are we masquerading as? Masquerade. Masks. The masks we wear. Metaphorically speaking. This is Masquerade. Overall, a good enough episode. Doesn't really break the bank creatively, so to speak, but it gets the job done. I wouldn't say to skip it, just to get the bottom line up front before we delve down deeper. This episode hits in a few ways that the past episode didn't, and it misses in a few ways that the past episode didn't. That episode being Crossroads. I think I prefer Crossroads, but Masquerade is no slouch either. We'll figure out what's good, what's bad. Let's get that mask on, baby. This is Masquerade. A direct continuation of our past episode. This is very much a continuing story style episode. I prefer the bottle episodes, an old television word for an episode that is completely self-contained, sometimes self-contained to the point where it's inside one ship for the entire episode. I like them. I like when there's an episode that just takes a break, and you don't have to worry about what came before, and you don't have to worry about what's coming next. Old Star Trek was very much about that. We are firmly in the realm of new Star Trek, and these days people seem to want 10-plus hour long movies, arbitrarily cut here and there to create episodes. For what it's worth, I think the animated outings for newer Star Trek offer something more akin to what I want in terms of self-contained episodes. Prodigy is a great balance, and so is Lower Decks. Lots of singular, self-contained, enjoyable episodes, with episodes here and there sprinkled in to get you back into the mindset of the main arc. Our main arc for Prodigy right now, since Prodigy has returned to television, as it were, is eluding Janeway, not letting Starfleet get the protostar, but also trying to make sure enemy combatants such as the Romulans do not get the protostar. We need to figure out how to stop the living construct, a weapon attached to the inside of the protostar that will destroy any Starfleet vessel that it comes in contact with. And we also need to go on the personal journey of finding out who we are and how we find our place in Starfleet. Okay? That's Prodigy up till now. That being said, last episode, this episode, if you're in it for the overarching plot, you can't skip. On their own, they're not really swinging for the fences. But they're far from bad. Masquerade isn't that bad either. We start off with, admittedly, an intro segment that I did not particularly enjoy. It looked bad on Dal. Stardate. Who cares? If you want to join Starfleet, maybe delete those logs before you get there. Lots of little moments here that I would not be proud of, especially if I were Dal. You'll see why in a moment. We have a daydream about Okana getting sucked out of an airlock. That's what Dal's dreaming about. Dal has experience envy. Okana looks sure of himself. Okana, let's say Okana's dumb. He's brash, impulsive, makes dumb decisions, made a lot of mistakes in his life. But Okana, from Dal's point of view, is accomplished, and he knows who he is. Two things that Dal is not. He has envy for those things. So, in a childlike way, he wants to see Okana fail. I don't want to see Okana fail. I want to see Okana succeed and do better. But I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed to sound like Dal's parent here. Does he have any? It turns out this is like a daydream, right? And lots of other terrible things happen too, like Murph running around with 2 phasers, tearing a strip out of the freaking hull plating, or deck plating as it were. Bad. Don't let Murph run around with phasers outside of the combat training room. Ships will usually have a room where you can test phaser firing, where it's safe to do so. Let Murph go in there, close the door, and let Murph go crazy. But as far as having phasers around, in general quarters, But was that a dream? Look how the dream happened. If you watch this episode, Murph's running around with phasers, and then Dal imagines Okana getting sucked out of an airlock, or what have you, and then wakes up from his stupor, his daydream. Was Murph running around with phasers part of the daydream? Does anybody know? They left it vague. Maybe they did that on purpose, for people like me who might complain about Murph running around with phasers. We need to fix the protostar. Okana is experienced. Oh, we need to go... Dal's making fun of him, repeating his talking like that. He says, we can go to Noble Isle. There's a starport there. We can go to Noble Isle. We can get everything fixed up. And I was going there anyway. We can go to Noble Isle. Very immature Dal. But this is a Dal episode, which means we're going to have a lot of personal growth, baby. Room for growth. We go to Noble Isle. It's exactly what you think, guys. I'm getting tired of unaffiliated planets that are just basically a big raunchy casino. This one is not a casino, but it is a planet of veritable gambling in another way, that being scientific gambling. As Rok-tahk says later in this episode, science rules, but science must also have rules. Janeway says, we don't allow this reckless scientific experimentation in the Federation, because if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Interesting little axiom for yourself, right? Or a little rule of thumb. It's so true, it's meta-true. If something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Interesting that spreads all across the known universe. It's one of those things that's not localized true. It's true as physics is true. It's as true as gravity. Okay? It's a golden rule. People are going to try to swindle you. Be careful out there for the things that sound too good to be true. We're going to find something that sounds too good to be true in a moment when we go down the space elevator. That's right. Noble Isle has a space elevator. And it kind of makes sense. You see, this planet, it is engulfed in a permanent ion storm. And finally, there's a reason to have that in Star Trek. So many planets accidentally have them, so that we can't transport down, womp womp. But Noble Isle, being a place that wants to hide, a place for perhaps morally gray individuals, untoward individuals, would want to be on a planet where you couldn't beam down easily, right? So it makes sense that they would be on this planet that cannot be transported onto. Makes sense. The reasoning is not backwards. The reasoning is proactive. It's like, it didn't just happen to be that way. They came to that planet because it was that way. Which is a type of writing I'd like to see more of in Star Trek. Something that logically proves itself, instead of just an accident, which is very common. Like having an ion storm so our characters can conveniently not beam down. Right? Instead of coming up with a logical, lore-based reason for why it should be that way. Like we did here, Noble Isle. It makes sense. The story behind it and why it has the storm. Okay? But it's a space elevator. So you know what's going to happen, right? There's a space elevator. Somebody's going to jump off it. Can't get around it anymore. It's just as soon as you see it, you know we're gonna jump. I'll spare you, right? People who know me know that I could go off on this stupid idea of jumping around and skydiving in Star Trek. But let's just leave it there, okay? So we go down the space elevator, everything's fine, and we go to this admittedly boring-looking city. Rok-tahk seems very surprised, but I looked at it and I said, well, it doesn't look that sciencey. It looks just kind of average. It looks like every other, it looks like the hustle and bustle of every other unaligned planet, if you know what I mean. And we've been seeing a lot of them in Star Trek lately. We get down to the bottom, and we meet Dr. Jago. Conveniently, this is the person that Okana was coming to meet anyway. Dr. Jago is a geneticist. Very cool, right? Well, the Federation frowns on unguided genetic experimentation. A lot. They frown on that. It's an egregious violation of ethics in a lot of ways. There's a vast difference between healing somebody and giving something to them that they didn't already have. It's a little bit like breaking the prime directive on yourself, if that makes sense. If you want to look at it from the lens of the prime directive, there's a way you can do it, but it is fringe. Okana was supposed to bring her the putrescine, some chemical. He lost it at Dinaxi Depot. We saw that last episode. It got tossed. It is now permanently missing, or permanently misplaced, as Okana says, as an interesting euphemism for lost. Forget that. After this point, Okana is basically just faded away from the story. Zero just fades away. Jankum fades away. He's just fixing the protostar. A lot of her cast just kind of fades into the background, apart from Rock and Dal, which is fine. I mean, you can't have an episode that's so overly bloated, every character gets a say. It's nice maybe in like a season finale or a bigger episode, but it's good to have episodes that just focus on one character at a time so we can really digest these pieces, We don't want to bite off more than we can chew. We want small, digestible, thematic chunks for each character. Dal finds out from Dr. Jago that, he has a history. He's not nobody. He's somebody, but at the same time, he's also kind of a nobody. An interesting dynamic. Dr. Jago says, I don't know what you are, but I know who you are or who you came from. Okay, first time I watched this, I should say, I didn't like it. And then I gradually learned to like it on repeat viewings, but right here, Dr. Jago says that he's descended from the proteges of Dr. Eric Sung. Again, how is this Sung guy? He just shows up over and over and over. I'm just getting it's a little fishy that one guy could have affected all these different planets, all these different lineages, all these different scenarios. I mean, Eric Sung, Noonien Sung, Adam Sung, whatever. Okay, she says that Eric, or I think it was Eric Sung, defected from the Federation, and he landed here, I guess, this unaffiliated world, to conduct his perhaps unsavory genetic research, not unlike Dr. Maddox, if you remember Picard Season 1. But it's just so narrow. It's just like, it's just make it someone else. I don't know. It just seems like why we always keep coming back to these Sung guys. I'm just getting a little tired of it. But in its defense, at the very least, it didn't say that he was created by a Sung individual. He was created by the proteges of them. Okay, at the very, very least, he was born in quote unquote a petri dish. He is a mix-up of like 26 or so different species. He is the result of artificial speciation, I think is what they called it. He's just a Lego man. He's built up of Legos from a million different sets that don't belong together. And guess what? All of his genes were the recessive ones. Yeah, I can already see something coming. Is there another character who is the same as Dal, but he got all the dominant genes? Is dominant necessarily better? I guess the noggin jogging. Also, it did mention that he started out as an unremarkable, I think is what they said, unremarkable human test subject or human embryo. I don't know. The dialogue made it appear to me that there was an original human Dal being. Am I wrong? It made it sound like it started out as a human specimen of some sort. If that's the case, did that come from two parents? Does he still have parents? Is that how that works? I'm not very clear on it. I maybe we should have gone further to explain that he literally was made from scratch and not a human as a basis. Because as soon as you say that, a human has to be somebody. Like they had to come from parents, right? You know? Unless you go the extra mile to explain that, no, this is a completely artificial process. So, more citation needed. Suffice to say, Dal now feels like a nobody. He learned where he was from, only to be disappointed. Sometimes it's better to have the question than it is to have the answer, as I often say. And now his answer is disappointing. He's somebody, but that somebody is nobody in particular. He's just he's a mishmash. He's unique. That's pretty good. I mean, who doesn't want to be unique? However, one can be so unique that they belong nowhere. And I think Dal is now on the other side of that question. He's now in the reasoning, the depression, and bargaining phase. Although I would posit that there could be more to this. We could find his creators. We could find the parents of the original human specimen, if I read into that correctly. So his journey's not over, but we're in a valley. We're in an emotional valley, and Dal doesn't like what he found, and I partake in that sadness as well. I think it came across well. I think thematically this episode is more dense than Crossroads in that regard. But Dr. Jago can make you a better you. You see, there's a dermal implant that can go on the back of your neck that will stimulate cell division and awaken dormant genes. So it's like active gene therapy. Okay, it's fast. No one will know. But is it right? Our characters walk away after having touched base with Dr. Jago. Dal stays behind. Right? How fast is this procedure? And then Dr. Jago gets the menacing glare, and the music has this menacing swell to it, making Jago look evil or villainous, making this event look not an accident or a mistake, but a conscious evil act. I think maybe the music was incorrect here, because as we'll see in a moment, the dermal implant works like it's supposed to. I think it did what it was intending to do. It wasn't nefarious in origin. The music and the way Dr. Jago was presented would have you believe that this is more nefarious than it really was. It was simply a mistake, a miscalculation. They are waylaid by Romulans. Romulans are trying to steal the Protostar. Okay? Dal has his thermal implant activated by his little head ganglia, and he turns into this bizarre Klingon, Vulcan, Andorian, Tellarite hybrid character who just lays waste to these Romulans barehanded. he just goes straight into kung fu mode and just obliterates them. Making me wonder, like, that is activating the dormant genes or recessive. Can he remember can he remember doing that? Does he have the muscle memory of doing that now? Is doing that while using the gene therapy, is that training for being able to do it when it's gone? Like, I wonder, does he benefit from that experience? That's just a side thing. As you know, our A plot and our B plot for this whole show, Real Janeway, Crew of the Protostar, these plots are now melded, you see, as they should be. Janeway is hot on the trail, okay? We can't go in to the neutral zone. I understand that. Admiral Jellicoe makes an appearance in this episode. Don't ruin Jellicoe, writers. Don't ruin him. Don't turn him into an actual villain. Anyway, from Jellicoe, Janeway gets her orders. You are to destroy the Protostar. If the Romulans get a hold of it, destroy it. Final. Good enough. We have our marching orders. We can't go into the neutral zone on our own. So what can we do? Well, if we want to go into the neutral zone and spy on the Romulans, then the Romulans probably want to spy on us. So if we just spy on the Romulans and monitor their communications, we might know where they're going. Good idea. That's how we find out that they're going to Noble Isle as well. The Romulans have tracked the Protostar, as did the Dauntless in a way. So now we have the three-way clash of the Protostar crew, the Romulans, and the Dauntless. What's going to happen? Ensign Essentia, you may remember from the previous episode, and I think the episode before that, is talking with the Diviner, one-on-one. She's trying to get something out of him. Keep that in mind. We're trying to shoot the Protostar down. It is attached to the space elevator. Our characters need to get back to the ship with the parts that they had purchased on the surface of Noble Isle. That's fine. And what ensues is a very cool battle between Romulans and our characters on the space elevator. Moments before, when the Romulans attacked us on the ground, they did the jump off the elevator, of course. We did the jump off the elevator. Could we at least just have gliders or a jetpack? Something cool. I knew when we saw the elevator, someone was going to have to jump off it, and the Romulans sure did. That's beside the point. Now we're back on the elevator. And there's multiple pods going up this elevator. The Romulans are shooting from theirs, and our characters are shooting back at them and stuff, and it's so cool. It's like, I don't know if I've seen this before in Star Trek. A battle on a space elevator that takes place between two different lifts. Very cool. Somehow rok-tahk knows that the lightning storm is going to strike them because they're holding metal, which is a conductor. That's true. But Gwyn, put down your heirloom. I know it's made of metal somehow. Just trust me. Okay. Puts down her sword thingy / shield. The elevator is struck by lightning. Curious that could happen. There was no defense around that. Like, you'd want to design it so that it would safely ground itself, right? But in its defense, the windows around these pods were broken at the time. Maybe the windows defended from that. But what this means is that presumably the Romulans get zapped by lightning. That's fine. Because I guess they were holding metal, like guns. I guess their guns were made of metal. But what we learn now is that our characters, save for Gwyn's heirloom, are not holding any metal. If you look at, especially Dal's outfit, am I wrong in assuming there's some metal in that? Like, some things look like they might be made of metal. Like, I don't, at least conductive metal. Am I crazy? Also, there's a safety breathing helmet inside this elevator that miraculously fits Rock's head. That's a little far-fetched, but we are in an alien world here, and we serve all kinds here. So maybe these elevators have vastly bigger helmets, Maybe they got little tiny ones, maybe they got really big ones, so you don't know who's going to need it. In the show's defense for helmeting Rock, even though her head is a very odd shape, being that she is made of rock, as it were. Interestingly, Dow's new psychic abilities that he gets from, I don't know, whatever, his mishmash genetics, in this moment allows him to seem to have a strange psychic connection, I guess, with Murph. They let Murph out of her little safety pod thing, and Murph flies through the air and onto the other pod in the elevator and just lays waste to Romulans. Just freaking combat Murph. There's our new security officer. I can't say no to Murph. Murph can basically do anything. I can't say no to it. I just love Murph. It doesn't matter. Any other show, this would look stupid, but Murph gets away with it because Murph is Murph. And Murph creates a shield around the pod to, I guess, hold in the air while our characters go up back onto the protostar, which I assume is beyond the atmosphere on top of this space elevator. Essentia on the Dauntless. The Romulans have gotten off the protostar, blah, blah, blah. We don't have to destroy it. I think she says that. And then we've shot torpedoes at it. And then once we realize the Romulans have failed to capture it, and therefore, according to Jellicoe's orders, we don't need to destroy it, we activate emergency port, I think they say, thrusters on these torpedoes. And they divert and explode in the distance. At the last minute, I guess torpedoes can just change direction. Not impossible. But we save the protostar, and the Dauntless didn't have to destroy it. Had the Romulans succeeded in stealing it, they would have had to destroy the protostar. However, the Romulans were incapable of capturing Captain Dow to use his command codes to unlock the ship. As you do. We're back on the protostar, and everything's A-okay. Jenkin's fixing the protostar with the parts we got, and we learned about the meaning of imperfection and how imperfection can be better than perfect. You see, perfect is the enemy of good. Sometimes you gotta settle for good enough. If you can't love the person you are, you gotta love the one you're with. That doesn't make any sense. That song, if you can't be with the one you love the one you're with. Maybe it's more like, if you can't be the person you want to be, love the one you are. Got it. It just took a while to ferment in my mind. But I think that really sums up this episode, does it not? Now, something I could not predict. Essentia is a Vauna cat. At the very end, this is what's revealed. The Diviner is not the only person sent back from Solum to destroy Starfleet. No. Essentia uses a similar device on the back of her neck that we had established in this episode so that this twist can't happen. She presses it and turns herself back into a Vauna cat. You're not the only one that was sent after the protostar. Dreadnought, activate. And a table that was in the room with the Diviner transforms into Dreadnought. I knew it. I knew he'd be back. He's not gone. This could possibly explain why, earlier in the season, the Diviner, at a few moments, seemed like he was pleading with Dreadnought. It seemed like he was taking orders from Dreadnought. So what we're learning now is there's a command hierarchy here. Actually, the Diviner appeared to be the big bad guy. He was like taking orders from Dreadnought, and Dreadnought is controlled by this new Vauna cat that we met in this episode. I found this compelling, intriguing, and I want to see what happens next, which is good. That you can't construe that as a bad thing. Wanting more can be a good thing, right? It makes you come back. I'm intrigued, I'm interested, I'm invested. But curiously, when did Essentia basically be replaced by this Valnicat? Was the genetic device so powerful that it could fool medbay transporters? I mean, you can see it on the back of her neck. I'm forced to conclude, based on the circumstances, that Essentia was only recently replaced by this Valnicat. A few things about that. This Valnicat was trying to save the Protostar for themselves. They don't want the Romulans to have it. They don't want it destroyed. So you have to answer the question, why is it in this episode that Essentia, maybe it was Essentia at that time, told Janeway that the Romulans have captured the Protostar? Like, there's something in this episode where Essentia essentially reports the content of her panel on the bridge to Janeway, such that it allows Janeway the out to destroy the Protostar. Go back and watch this again. If Essentia was trying to save the Protostar for herself, or at least not have it destroyed, she would not say that the Romulans are trying to capture it. Wouldn't she lie? So what that could mean is that at that time, that was not a Valnicat. At that time, that was the real Essentia, and this Valnicat that we don't know anything about yet was hiding on the ship and replaced her at that moment. Perhaps this Valnicat was hiding on the ship, somehow eluded the sensors with future technology that she has from Solum, which is not impossible, and then already had, or covertly beamed down to the surface of Noble Isle, got that implant, used it to copy Essentia, replace her at that moment, and then use it to get close to the Diviner? What would be the incentive at this moment for her not to kill the Diviner? Can we get away with that in Prodigy? Just killing someone like that? He's a liability, is he not? He's going to spill the beans. He's mind melted. Let's just get rid of him. I expect the Diviner will be done away with in some way, or the Diviner will turn heel and become a good guy. That would be cool. Maybe when this new Valnicat, we'll just call her Essentia for now, says we're running out of time at the end, maybe that means she knows there's a way to turn off the living construct, right? We're running out of time. That means the living construct could be fallible in some way we do not understand yet. Maybe the Diviner is going to accidentally reveal how to turn it off. Maybe the crew of the Protostar, she knows they're actually close to figuring it out on their own. We can't figure it out. We're the audience. But maybe they're figuring it out in some way that we don't know yet. Very intriguing. Really gets the noggin jogging. That was Masquerade. Ronnie Cox is back as Admiral Jellicoe in animated form. Beautiful. Thematically, we're learning to be okay with who we are as Dal. And as rok-tahk, like I said before, while science rules, science must have rules. Leave it to rok-tahk to put it so simply and eloquently in her science log, now that she doesn't have to double up as security officer, because we got Murph as security officer now. So cute. Our characters are cute. They're youthful. They're young. You know, so it hits me hard when they get hit hard. You know, it hits twice as hard coming from a youthful, blissful, and admittedly ignorant mind of the greater scheme of things. You know, Dal, he just wanted to be like Okana. You know, I just wanted to be accepted. I wanted to be experienced. I messed up. You know, he cheated, as Rock says. Thankfully, his changes aren't permanent. Starfleet would frown upon that kind of behavior from anybody who was already in Starfleet. Having genetic enhancements. It's an egregious lapse in judgment on Dal's behalf. Admittedly, he would be considered a minor at this point, I believe. So we're not going to let it tarnish him too bad. But this just didn't seem very Dal to me. Willingly getting this implant. But we're going to let bygones be bygones because it ain't permanent. Protostar gets away. We fix the ship. O'Connor disappeared, as he is wont to do. A very Rock and Dal heavy episode. Rock with the science and Dal with the self-discovery. Zero, Gwyn, Jankum kind of just disappear in this episode, and like I said, that's fine. And Janeway, the real Janeway, now has to contend with having Dreadnought on her ship as they pursue the Protostar and possibly the Romulans. That's a recipe for disaster. It's worth noting that Dreadnought, he transforms from a table or something. Like, how are the internal sensors of the Dauntless not detecting this? How long was he sitting there? How did they get there? We're building up a lot of mysteries, and if we're getting close to the end, I'm getting a little bit apprehensive about adding mysteries at this point. I just want to see things wrap up. You know what I'm saying? Let's just, from now on, no more mysteries. Let's start solving things. Let's start solving how Dreadnought and that new Valnicat got onto the Dauntless. Let's solve who Dal's specific creators are, who the humanoid specimen was. We're going to solve where Murph came from exactly. We're going to find a home for our characters. We're going to solve how Chakotay lost the Protostar. And we're hopefully we're going to have a great season. This episode, good enough, not so great. Musically, it opens with a beautiful rendition of the TOS theme song when Dal is giving his captain's log. Very cool. Visually, I wasn't particularly impressed. I've seen a million different unaffiliated planets that just look like a big city. There's nothing new there, baby. Try again next time. Next time we have an unaffiliated, morally gray city planet. Let's just make it look a little different. Let's make it look a little bit more fun, a little bit more crazy, and a little bit less like just a dense, veritable jungle of buildings. Let's get something else going. You'd think someone would be excited to go to a planet like this, but I was just bored. The space elevator, boring. We jumped off it, double boring. I don't need to see that anymore. Thematically, we're hitting home. We're doing it. Dal's learning about who he is, who he wants to be, and who he should be. 3 different people. He just wanted to be like O'Connor. And then Gwen says, "You're not like O'Connor. You're better." Because O'Connor left, and Dal stayed behind with him. He's a real captain. See, it's making me smile. That's improving my review score already. It's acting on my heart to improve my review score. But logically, not listening to emotion, what was here, it's hitting about a 5.5. We could have did a lot more. The planet could have looked a lot cooler. We could have dropped a few more little morsels of hints about what Essentially was up to. Just a few. I think that could have been intriguing on repeat watchings or viewings. It's plot necessary, so it's a keeper. So if you really like this episode, you can confide in that. There's your score. There's your episode. This is Masquerade. Everybody was masquerading as something. That Valnicat masquerading as Essentia. And Dal masquerading as the person he thought he could be. But he cheated, you see? And cheaters, use gene therapy. And winners don't do drugs, guys. I'm Lieutenant Merrick. I'm going to see you when next I see you. So long.